Verse 2:4, who opposes himself and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The words which begin this verse are actually in the present tense. Rightly translated, it says the one opposing and exalting himself. If taken substantially, it would read the opposer and exalter of himself. It clearly is a reference to the Antichrist. The words are reflective of Satan himself, but are being applied to a man, and so it is one who is wholly in league with the goals and intents of Satan. It is this man of lawlessness who places himself above all that is called God or is worshipped. In this phrase, it is understood that the Antichrist will place himself above the true God as well as above all false gods. Total allegiance to him will be required. In essence, he will be believed to be the fulfillment of whatever hope is laid out in any religion, any at all. For those who say they are Christians, he will appear as their Christ. For the Jews, he will be their Messiah. For Muslims, he will be their Mahdi, etc. But he will exalt himself above the God or gods that he claims that he is from, demanding worship of himself only. There are things that are not gods, which receive worship and adoration, but he will exalt himself above any such thing. This self-exaltation will be seen in a demand for total allegiance above power, money, or even life itself. This will be fully seen and realized on the day that he sits as God in the temple of God, according to Paul. These words, for countless years of the church, have been taken to mean something other than a Jewish temple. That temple was destroyed, and there seemed no chance of one ever being rebuilt. Some have taken this to mean the Vatican, where the Pope sits. Others argue it's referring to the Christian church in general. Charles Ellicott, who I respect highly, but he was many years ago before things were turned back into the Jews' favor and they're back in the land. Charles Ellicott took it to mean, here's what he thinks that means, a poetical or prophetical description of usurping divine prerogatives generally. These and other analyses were based on a misunderstanding that the church had somehow replaced Israel or that there would never again be a temple of God in Jerusalem. However, it is understood from the dispensational model, which is the correct one, by the way, that Jews do have another temple coming. Daniel 9:24 through 27. It is written to Jerusalem and to your people. Daniel was a Jew. His city was Jerusalem. Okay, your city and your people, Jerusalem. And that is now possible with Israel back in the land. The temple implements are ready. I have seen them. I've been there and I've seen them. And since I was there, they've made more, which I've seen online. Okay, they are built. They're ready. And this is actually in accord with Revelation 11, verse 1, where John was told to measure the temple of God. One does not measure a universal church or a poetical, prophetical description. And the Vatican doesn't sit in Jerusalem. Paul's words, combined with those of Daniel and John, clearly indicate a rebuilt Jewish temple in Jerusalem, coming soon to a temple near you. Okay? It is in this temple that the Antichrist will sit as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, according to Paul. To sit in the temple where only God is allowed to reside is to claim the authority and personage of God. No priest is said to sit in the temple ever in the Old Testament. There are duties to be conducted and then they are to depart. No such furniture exists for the priests to sit down. Only in the Holy of Holies of the temple was there a place of rest. This is where God dwelled above the cherubim on the mercy seat above the ark. The high priest would enter behind that veil once a year. We just went through the Day of Atonement sermon, okay, once a year to make atonement for the sins of the people. But other than that, there was no sitting of any kind involved in temple duties. Good news. Hebrews 10 verse 12 and Hebrews 12 verse 2 say that Jesus performed his work and then he did what? He sat down. Jesus is the Lord God. Antichrist sitting in the temple will be his claim that he is entitled to sit there because he is the one who is God, or at least he thinks he is. As it is known that Jesus is God incarnate and the Christ, this then is the Antichrist. He will make a false claim against the true God who has revealed himself in the person of Jesus.